Time now for the St. Johnsbury Chrysler Dodge Jeep Rams Outdoor Edge on YKR Country.
That's right. Welcome to the St. Johnsbury Chrysler Dodge Jeep Rams Outdoor Edge right here in WYKR. I'm Josh, and we've got another great show lined up for you. This week, Gary Moore sits down with RJ Thompson, the Executive Director of Vermont Huts and Trails, to talk about Vermont's growing network of backcountry huts and trails that make it easier than ever to experience the Green Mountains in our whole new way. So whether you're a day hiker, a mountain biker, a skier, or someone looking for a unique overnight adventure, Vermont Huts and Trails is creating unforgettable outdoor experiences just across the entire state. We'll also bring you our summer activities report, where we visit the beautiful Peacham Lavender Farm. Cindy Camber joins us to share what makes this Northeast Kingdom destination so special during lavender season. And as always, Mark Breen from the Fairbanks Museum joins us with our Outdoor Edge forecast. So it's chucker block full again, so we're just going to jump right into it.
Good evening. Welcome to Thoughts on the Outdoors. My guest tonight is RJ Thompson. He's with Vermont Huts and Trails. Welcome, RJ.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
Would you tell our listeners a little bit about Huts and Trails, what it does, what the organization is, etc.?
Sure thing. So Vermont Huts and Trails is a 501c3 nonprofit org. We are 10 years old. We got started actually at the Green Mountain Club headquarters.
Oh, is that right?
That's right.
Waterbury Center.
Yep, exactly.
10 years old as of Sunday, I think you said.
Yeah, July 12th, 2016 is the date of that first meeting that we had.
Okay.
And at that meeting, there was a group of nonprofit kind of advocates and representatives from organizations. And we got together to talk about what could an interconnected hut system look like in Vermont. You know, could the Green Mountain Club take it on? Could the Catamount Trail take it on? Could, Vermont Mountain Bike Association take it on? Because we were talking about multi-use, a multi-use trail and hut network that could serve skiers and hikers and mountain bikers. And kind of out of that meeting, it was determined that kind of needed to be its own standalone organization. And myself and another naive individual, the two of us, not knowing what we were getting into, raised our hands and said, we'll give this a shot. Yeah, 10 years ago, and it has flown by quite quickly.
So you formed a nonprofit corporation?
We did. We, Devin Littlefield and I, we filed our 501c3 paperwork pretty much a week after that meeting, got things going. Started by doing kind of an inventory of what was existing already on the ground here in Vermont. What structures were trail side or near to trails. And we found a couple, some had already been operating.
The Green Mountain Club had some.
Certainly, yeah. The Green Mountain Club had their Bryant Camp and Bolton Lodge, which they had just restored on state lands. Of course, they have 60 plus shelters on the long trail. Those are generally 3-season and hiking only. So we were trying to, find locations that could serve, like I said, multiple user groups. And wouldn't you know it, there just weren't that many. And so after that, we got.
Could I ask
absolutely,
you a question?
Yeah.
Was the goal for 4-seat year-round operations?
Yeah, in most situations.
Because, a lot of them weren't for winter.
Right, exactly. Yeah, the goal has always been to, whenever possible, have these structures be year-round use. Especially if we're building them new. We really, if we're going to spend that amount of time and energy in a structure, we'd love for it to be open year-round.
Okay.
But yeah, there weren't that many back then, and what that led to was a really thoughtful and deliberate planning process, outreach to stakeholders, introducing ourselves to land managers, kind of more or less pitching this idea of an interconnected hut and trail system. And then carrying forward some of the great work that other trail groups had done in the past, and figuring out ways how we could start to connect to towns and villages across the state. Around the same time that we were getting started, there were conversations happening with local VMBA, Vermont Mountain Bike Association chapters, kind of between Killington.
Because mountain biking was really getting big about that time.
Yeah, it's been growing, and I think that the pods that exist across the state, particularly back then, it was kind of between Killington and Stowe. You had the Mad River Riders, you had Ridgeline Outdoor Collective, obviously Stowe Trails Partnership, KMBC, Killington Mountain Bike Club, and they had been kind of just saying, hey guys, like, we've got these great networks. Wouldn't it be cool if we could go from one to the other without having to get in our cars and drive? And so around that time, it became kind of the next organic move would be to say, oh, okay, well, if there's this hut network that's going to be trying to link recreational, trail users, could we do it more intentionally and together and link up and make sure that we know where, okay, maybe there's a new trail going over there, or they're trying to connect from A to B. Wouldn't it make sense to have a hut kind of somewhere in the midpoint? Out of that grew the Velomont, the concept for the Velomont Trail. And Angus McCusker had been working, who now works for Vermont Hudson Trails, with Ridgeline Outdoor Collective, and was kind of herding the cats, if you will, and trying to bring people together and understand, okay, let's try to identify a little bit of a corridor, a very loose corridor, where we know this town is intrigued and would love to see the trail come directly into their village. And fast forward a couple more years and you have the Velomont Trail, and then go for a little bit further, and Vermont Huts. At the time, we were Vermont Huts Association. We then became Vermont Hudson Trails because we were also kind of the spearhead for that.
You keep saying Velomont.
Yep.
Many of our listeners, I'm sure, have not heard of that.
Yeah, let's
talk about
that. Talk about that. It's a funny portmanteau, I guess. It's when, combining those two words of bike and Vermont. So the Velomont is what the long trail is for hiking, and the Catamount Trail is for skiing. The Velomont Trail is that, but for biking. So it will go from Canada to Massachusetts. It'll be about 485 miles.
Mostly center Vermont.
It's funny. It's kind of an undulating blob across the state, our corridor of opportunity. And that's because the trail is intentionally routed into Vermont's rural towns and villages. And, unlike the long trail, which stays high up on the ridge line for the most part, obviously it comes down and to some of the gaps. But this trail, we wanted folks to be able to come off the trail, grab a bite to eat, maybe spend a night in town somewhere, and then continue the next day, go back into the backcountry and stay in one of the huts.
I see.
So it's intentionally routed into the communities to hopefully drive a little bit of business to those rural places.
Now, does it, for instance, does it connect to the trail system in Burke?
The long-term vision would be, to have it eventually use the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail. So as you're heading north from, Stowe, and you get up to Johnson and Morrisville, you would be able to hop on the existing LVRT, Lamoille Valley Rail Trail, and then get over to St. Jay. And from there, that's when we need to do additional groundwork to figure out how we would get up into the kingdom and then ultimately to the Canadian border.
Okay.
Yeah. Right now, our kind of phase one areas of focus have been in central Vermont and then also in southern Vermont. Good chunk of federal land, the Rochester district and the Manchester district. We have over 100 miles of shovel-ready trail between those two districts.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So good progress.
Yeah. But the goal eventually is to get to Canada.
That's the goal, yeah. And we'll use, when we're scouting, we're always looking at pre-existing infrastructure, other trail networks that we can co-locate with, and not build 485 miles of brand new trail. That would be astronomically expensive. It already is astronomically expensive, but for example, down in the Manchester district, we're able to co-locate with the Catamount Trail a fair amount. And that makes sense because it also improves the experience during the winter as we kind of improve the trail tread and maybe improve some bridging that was getting wet during winter months. Makes it a little more skiable in the winter as well.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point for us to pause.
Sure.
For a minute.
You've picked the paint colors, maybe even sketched a layout on the back of an envelope, or made the playlist for your grand opening. But without a design, it's just a dream. Riverside Design Works in Bradford makes those dreams real for families and small businesses across the Upper Valley. Affordable, functional, and community-focused, we build for your needs and within your budget. But heads up, the 2026 construction season is booking fast. If you want shovels in the ground next year, you need plans today. Keep it simple. Riverside Design Works. Smart choices, reliable results.
Miles Supply, your stop for all your general business products, paper towels, toilet paper, first aid kits, and more. Purchase your paper and soap products from Miles, and they'll install the dispensers for free. Do you own a salon, restaurant, coffee shop, or gym making a monthly run to the big box store for your business supplies? Save time with Miles Supply. Call today for a sales visit, 476-3963, or walk directly into their showroom, 143 Boynton Street next to Spalding High School. Miles Supply, family owned and building relationships since 1954.
When the sun is high and the to-do list grows, it's time to call the folks who know. From mudroom builds to summer repairs, Bachelor shows up and truly cares. Remodels, upgrades, porches too. No job too small, they'll see it through. So make this summer your best one yet with vtcarpenter.com, your safest bet.
Every business story starts small. As you share your story, it creates movement, and movement builds momentum. Your social media and website are the conduits for that story. It's about more than clicks and views. It's about creating connection, community, and opportunity to do business. It's time to tell your story. Go to northeastkingdomonline.com. Our local Vermont team can help you get more from your online media. Once again, that's northeastkingdomonline.com.
Welcome back to Thoughts on the Outdoors. If you're just joining me, my guest tonight is RJ Thompson from Vermont Hudson Trails. We've been talking about this organization that just celebrated its 10th anniversary this past Sunday, as they're connecting various trail networks in the state of Vermont for recreation, from not just for hiking or cross-country skiing, but for biking and so forth. So I noticed from your website that you list 19 huts starting up in Barton and another one over in Bloomfield, and then going all the way south to Stratton, primarily along the spine of Vermont. Would you talk about this network, please?
Yeah, that's it. I guess it's now, we could say it is statewide. It does cover a fair amount of corners of the state. So when we got started, as I said, we were looking at what existed on the ground, and Green Mountain Club with their Bryant Camp and Bolton Lodge was a natural fit for us to list on our website. We market and promote it. And so...
And if I remember minutes ago, you had said that your first meeting started at the Green Mountain Club, so they've been on board from early on.
Yeah, they've been a tremendous partner of ours, right? Like Green Mountain Club has been doing this for over a century, so they're kind of the experts in backcountry management and construction, really. So the huts that are listed on our site kind of get there in three different ways, really. The kind of like easiest would be Vermont Huts and Trails just helping to market and promote and get the word out about a particular location. So, like I said,
at one site, your website, I can find out about all 19 of these huts.
Exactly. Yep. You can go to our site and it'll list all huts. And some of those you might click, book now, and that might link you over to a partner site. So, for example, Merck Forest and Farmland Center, that's another one that has their rental cabins, and we just help to market and promote those. Yep, over in Rupert.
Right.
And and then you have the Green Mountain Club structures. Then there's kind of what most of the huts on the site right now are our partner operators. And we handle everything from the bookings, the guest communication, the marketing and promotion, of course. And in some cases, we do handle a little bit of the management of those structures, depending on the agreement. But those structures are either owned by other nonprofit organizations or local mom and pop outfits who, someone has a back 40 and they say, I've got a nice cabin back there. It happens to be adjacent to the Catamount Trail. Would you be willing to list it in your network? And in that case, we go out, we can do a site visit, check out the structure, make sure they're kind of following best management practices, and come up with a plan for occupancy and bring that into our network, and then open that up to the public.
Yeah, land conservation and good ecological practices, that's a big part of what you're trying to do, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, humans love being outside and playing and recreating. And so if we can, do our best to isolate that impact, with these huts, there is data that supports, it's a lower impact than having everyone be, dispersed and kind of doing their own thing. You can kind of keep that impact isolated. And then the third way in which we create this network, the huts, is by building them ourselves. So we do everything from the scouting up front to the design, the permitting, and then ultimately the construction. And what that means is listening to local stakeholders and community members who know the area, know the trails, working with the Forest Service and the state.
I gotta say, a lot of the network in the South is on Green Mountain National Forest property.
Yes, yeah, exactly. That whole Manchester district hosts will host a lot of the trail segment. And we do have the Grout Pond hut is down there. And so, when we're building and we're choosing a site, we're listening to folks and say, hey, like there's a mountain bike trail over there. The Catamount Trail is only a quarter mile that way. You're trying to triangulate your resources to make sure you're able to serve multiple user groups. And we've had Yestermorrow has built one of our huts down near Rochester. That's in the Chittenden Brook recreation area.
Okay.
And then we had Vermont Youth Conservation Corps build our Grout Pond hut. And right now we're actually building the South Pond hut in-house. Okay. So that will actually be the first hut that we've designed and built on our own, and we'll be locating that.
But of these 19 huts, how many of them belong to your organization? Right now 2. We own 2 and operate 2, the same 2, and we're building the third now. Okay.
The other thing that we're doing where the trail comes into towns, in some towns there's not a ton of accommodations. So there's if people are doing multi-day adventures or even just a few, we're actually going to be renovating a building in downtown Randolph, which will be a hostel type experience. Okay. Yeah. So that's a kind of a front country experience that is happening this summer. We actually just made a bid selection, and so we'll be excited to get to work on that too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about the typical hut.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Running water.
Nope.
Off grid.
Yeah. Off grid. Yeah. So what we like to say is for most of our huts, all you need to do is bring your sleeping bag and some food, and you'll be good to go. So for
facilities to cook.
Yes. So what we do, and there are a couple, like some of the Green Mountain Club huts, some of their camps, if you will, don't have a propane cooktop. Okay. But any huts that we build and operate, and a large majority of our other partner operators, there is a cooktop with some pots and pans, utensils, dishes, everything you would need to prepare a meal. So you just bring your food and a sleeping bag and you'll be all set. There, obviously, we do our best to locate them near a water source, so whether that's a seasonal or year-round stream, right, or a pond nearby that even in the winter they could break through the ice to get some water. So you have everything you need there. You just got to work a little harder to get it, so there's no plumbing. They also all have a heat source.
They all have heat too.
Yep, in the winter. So whether that be a wood stove or a propane stove for heat, so you can show up and be warm, which is great because if you have kids, and you want to bring them into the backcountry during the winter months, winter camping in a tent can be a turnoff for some.
Right.
It's a bit chilly.
Right.
But if you can kind of make that point of entry a bit more accommodating, you can get a few more folks outside. Yeah.
So one of the goals is to get families out.
100%. Yeah. These are, super family friendly experiences. Our most remote hut right now in the winter is about 2.2 mile approach. But a lot.
Which one is that?
That's the Chittenden Brook hut.
Oh, Chittenden Brook.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
In the summer, you can actually drive to that because it's in an existing campground. But they gate it in the winter, which is fantastic because you have this serene setting during the winter. So you can pull your kid up in a sled or one of those little chariots that have the skis on the back. And, we've had, even personally, my in-laws and my kids. So you get 3 generations up in a hut. And it's pretty special to be able to spend that time disconnected, no cell service, and you actually can just play games and talk to each other without those distractions.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good place for us to pause again.
Great.
We live somewhere incredible, and all of us at the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department want you to make the most of it. Hiking, hunting, birding, fishing, or even just sitting by a stream for a few minutes after work. Vermont's woods and waters make it possible, and protecting them is our responsibility. So we hope you'll lace up your boots and hike an old woods road on one of our wildlife management areas or put in for a day at the lake at one of our access areas. We protect these places for their own sake, for the wildlife who call them home, and for you.
In this part of the world, summer always feels a little bit borrowed. So when the sun's out, folks around here put it to good use. Whether it's fishing, target practice, or just looking for an excuse to stay outside till dark, CCR Sports in St. Johnsbury has the gear and supplies to help. Before the weekend gets away from you, make sure you're ready for it. Visit ccrsports.net today. CCR Sports has something for all seasons and all ages. And summer's too short to spend half of it looking for what you need. That's ccrsports.net.
I'm John Pellegrini with the Vermont Sporting Journal. If you care about hunting, fishing, trapping, wildlife, and the outdoor traditions that make Vermont special, I invite you to pick up a copy of the Vermont Sporting Journal. We cover the stories, seasons, people, and issues that matter to sportsmen and women across the Green Mountain State. Pick up your free copy at most hometown convenience stores or read more online at vermontsportingjournal.com. Once again, vermontsportingjournal.com.
Welcome back to Thoughts on the Outdoors. If you're just joining us, my guest tonight is RJ Thompson of Vermont Hudson Trails. We've been talking about the various trail networks in Vermont like the Long Trail, other hiking trails, the Catamount Trail for skiing, and a lot of the mountain bike trails, and their efforts to tie some of this together and provide huts and camps for people to stay as they're involved in outdoor recreation in any of these ways. So anyways, let's move right into this again. RJ, tell us more about what you've got going for you, what you're planning.
Yeah. So the organization has a lot of different projects that we're working on any given year. Two of the other exciting elements, I think, of Vermont Hudson Trails include, the fact that we're creating these new points of access to folks, but we also run a program that's called the Forest Program, and that's just an acronym for fostering outdoor recreation, education, sustainability, and teamwork.
Oh, wow.
Which is a bit of a mouthful.
Oh,
so
yeah.
So we just call it Forest Program. But it's really great. In Vermont, a lot of folks grow up with the mountains in their backyard, and some folks and families don't have the means to perhaps get out there. The gear can be quite expensive. So that program brings kind of underrepresented community members into the forest, usually teen groups. We partner with schools across the state and some teen centers, and bring them out with a professional guide who can provide some education on site out in the huts, totally free of charge for 2 nights. We've run programming for winter camping in the huts, but also, teaching folks how to build a fire kind of with next to nothing. backcountry, camp meal preparation, proper layering, all those things that we kind of take for granted that some folks maybe just had no idea was something to think about. And that's continued to grow. That program was started, right before COVID. Actually, we ran our first forest retreat, and then literally a month later, everything shut down. So we were kind of dormant on that program for about 2 years, but since then
Where do you run the program normally?
We run them we run them out of Chittenden Brook Hut and Grout Pond huts. We'll be running them out of the South Pond Hut once that comes online. I think we're starting to work with. We have 2 huts over in Worcester, the Minister Brook Hut and Hunger Mountain Hut. I think we're going to start running some programming over there too.
Now, if people are interested in that, is it listed on your website anywhere?
Yeah, there's a drop. If you go to vermonthuts.org, there's on the menu, there's forest program. And so you can reach out. We have a forest program director, Josh Fisher, and he's the point of contact for that program. Yeah, and he would be able to, take inquiries if folks had a group or other questions about what could work. We've also partnered a ton with Vermont Adaptive to do some adaptive programming at the huts, because the ones that we build, Chittenden Brook, Grout Pond, and now South Pond Hut, they're all ADA accessible.
Okay.
Yeah. So
you have been working with Vermont Adaptive too?
Yes. Yeah. They've been a great partner of ours, not only just for that programming, but just to think of things through. Oh, if you design a little bit differently, this would be more effective and more comfortable for our adaptive riders and adaptive guests who are in chairs.
Good.
And all this work kind of does help to catalyze some conservation opportunities as well. So if we are working, we have been working quite a bit with Trust for Public Land, really since we got started. They were the entity who conserved the Rolston Rest parcel, which it was a 2,700 acre inholding in Green Mountain National Forest. And that's actually where the South Pond Hut is going. So as the network has grown, we've been working with them to identify parcels that could be conserved and either added to a town forest, state lands, or the U.S. forest. So the Vermont Trail, as it kind of undulates its way across the state, inevitably will come across multiple private parcels because the state is primarily privately owned, and that has been great, because what that means is some of those pieces of land that maybe had been locked up, not because the landowner didn't provide access in the past, but maybe there wasn't great means to just get in there, whether it be a trail or a trailhead. So yeah, that's been a good learning experience for us to listen to and work directly with the Trust for Public Land and other land trusts across the state to create more, public lands and opportunity for Vermonters. Yeah.
Well, it sounds exciting, some of the things you're doing, some of the things you've done, and some of the things you're planning on. I myself would be interested in staying at some of those huts. I know some,
it's for everyone.
It's a good way to get away for a night or two.
100%. And you don't have to be a hiker or a skier or a mountain biker. You can be someone who just enjoys peace and quiet and birding. We have a lot of birders, hunters in shoulder seasons, these are right next to public lands in a lot of cases. And it's a great place. Not everyone has their own hunting camp. So
that's true.
You can do that too.
I'm familiar with the two up in, you say Barton.
Yep.
Actually Sutton. But they're right on the pond. A great place to get away if you've got kids. And it's very I think it's necessary right now. There's a lot of screen time and a lot of heads down looking, and every now and then you got to look up. But I mean, in the case of those, you can drive right to them.
Yes. Yep.
It's not like you got a backpack in and so forth. And
exactly. Yeah. And there's a fair amount of huts in the network, and we talk through that. On the website it says what the approach is. Can you drive right to it? Is it a couple hundred yards? So
you've got one over to Bloomfield too, right?
Yeah, the Nulhegan Hut.
Where is that?
That's run by Vermont River Conservancy. That's basically off 105, and it's just a few hundred yards walk from where
towards
you would
the river off 105.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
If you're coming from the west and you pass Silvio Conti Wildlife, you go past that, you almost you almost get to New Hampshire.
You take 105 to Bloomfield, and then that's 102.
If you go over, so you want to, anyway, you can see the map on the site,
Okay,
but
cool.
that's a good opportunity. And that's a really popular one. That's a timber frame that Yestermar did the timber frame itself, and then some volunteers that Vermont River Conservancy pulled together and kind of finished it off. And it's a beautiful structure right next to the river and
Great.
very peaceful.
Well, our time is about up. If our listeners, which I'm sure a lot of them will want to know more, they could go to your website.
Yep. They can check out vermonthuts.org. It's all spelled out. vermonthuts.org. Poke around on there. You can see all the huts. You can see some of the trail connections that we're working on and learn more about the forest program as well.
Well, I want to thank you for coming over and presenting us with information on Vermont huts and trails. Many of my listeners out there like to get out and explore. This is a good way to do it. And it's especially an easy way to take your family, if you've got kids, and get out there. With that, time to say goodnight.
All right, that was a conversation that Gary Moore had earlier with RJ Thompson, the executive director of Vermont Huts and Trails. And coming up after these important messages, you'll hear the conversation that I had earlier today with Cindy Camber from the Peacham Lavender Farm. And we're going to talk about all things lavender. It's coming up right after these important break.
The Autosaver Group, St. Johnsbury Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram asks, do your outdoor adventures take you to where you wish you had a four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive? At St. Johnsbury Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram, explore their vast inventory of adventure-savvy four-wheel drives and all-wheel drive vehicles ready for you to drive at home. Plus, every St. Johnsbury Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram deal includes the Big Deal Plus, which is a 2-year unlimited scheduled maintenance plan, which includes free state inspections for life. Stop in today in St. Johnsbury, Vermont, or shop St. Johnsbury Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram online at stjohnsburycdjr.com.
At R&L Archery, we know it's not just about the thrill of the hunt or the size of the fish. It's about the moments that matter most, the traditions passed down from one generation to the next, and the stories told by the fire long after the sun is set. It's about the journey, the memories, and the time spent together with friends and family, because these are the moments that truly last a lifetime. R&L Archery, where every adventure begins. Come create your story.
So when we think about farming here in the Northeast Kingdom, we often picture dairy barns, sugar woods, vegetable fields, and hay rolling across the hills. But tucked into the beautiful town of Peacham, just north of us, is a farm bringing a different color and fragrance to Vermont agriculture. Today, we're joined by Cindy Camber of Peacham Lavender Farm in Vermont. Cindy and her husband Dan grow several varieties of lavender along with heirloom and old-fashioned flowers. They also operate a rather memorable mobile flower barn known as Ringo, a restored 1962 Volkswagen truck. We're going to learn what it takes to grow lavender through a Vermont winter, how flowers support pollinators, and how Cindy turns a love of art, gardening, and kindness into a growing local farm business. Cindy, welcome to WYKR.
Thanks, Josh. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so let's begin with your story. What kind of inspired you and Dan to start Peacham Lavender Farm, and why did lavender become the centerpiece of the farm?
Yeah. Well, I spent many years traveling and living in different countries in Europe, and I just fell in love with the lavender fields of Provence, France. When Dan and I purchased our property in 2021, we stood at the top of the hill. It's a hillside property. And I looked out at this beautiful hill, and you could see the rolling hills of Peacham in the distance and even the White Mountains in the very far distance. And I thought to myself, this field would look gorgeous with lavender growing. And of course, when I said that, I looked at Dan and I said, let's plant lavender here. And he said, what's lavender? So he quickly discovered what lavender was, and the rest is history.
Right. So you spent, Cindy, many years working as an art teacher. So how did your artistic background kind of influence the way you grow the flowers, arrange bouquets, and kind of even present the farm as a whole?
I think what's really important to recognize when you're an art teacher is that you're studying color, you're studying texture, you're studying line, shape, form. You're learning about all of the elements and principles of design. And what we often think of as an art teacher, you think of somebody who's working with paint or working with graphite pencils. You don't necessarily think about floral arranging as an art form, but the reality is that it's no different than maybe working with clay as a sculpture artist. It's still a three-dimensional medium, and it was just so natural for me to start working with flowers and arranging flowers and making something beautiful out of an arrangement. The hard part for me, of course, is the science, the floriculture behind growing the flowers. And so I actually spent years, I'd say about 5 years now, learning floriculture. So I've taken several classes, and Michigan State University offers a class on lavender farming. And as a matter of fact, they're the only university in the country that offers a course on lavender farming. That was very, very helpful. And Floret Farm offers a course on floriculture. That was exceptionally helpful. And I continue to study every week, every day almost. I'm still reading and learning and teaching myself as I go.
And so I'm putting on my amateur horticulturist hat here, but lavender is often associated with like warmer, drier climates, though, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it is. So lavender is a Mediterranean crop. And to grow lavender here in the Northeast Kingdom, well, you have to learn some techniques that maybe are unfamiliar to a lot of people, starting with winterizing. And when I talk to people, everybody says, well, not everybody, a lot of people say to me, oh, my lavender, it died. I can't understand it. And I always say, well, did you cover it over winter? So that's the most important thing. We have a special winter blanket. It's a heavy cloth, and it can be purchased from a nursery. We have a metal frame, almost like a tent frame, that runs across each row of lavender, and then we stake the blanket over that frame. The frame prevents the snow from landing directly on the blanket and crushing the plant. So, there are some tips and tricks, but the winter blanket is a really big part of it. And I would also say the type of lavender that people are growing. So if you've gone into Home Depot or Lowe's and you've picked up a lavender plant, you found it on sale and you thought, oh, I'll give this a shot. Well, the odds are you may have purchased a plant that simply cannot grow in a Zone 4 region. A lot of times those stores might be selling a Spanish lavender or even a French lavender. And our region just isn't, we just can't grow it up here. It's just too cold. Right. So we grow a hybrid called Phenomenal, and it's done very, very well here. We've also grown a few different cultivars called, they're English. So we've got Munstead, which is really well known. We have Edelweiss, which is a little less known. That's a white lavender. And we have one that a lot of Vermonters are familiar with. It's called Hidcote Blue. It's a short little stem, but it has a beautiful dark blue purple bud on the top.
Right. So you kind of mentioned a little bit about temperature wise, but what about, say, like drainage? What have you learned about drainage?
Oh, yeah. Well, especially with the recent flooding over the past couple of years here, you really want to plant your lavender on a slope. You want the water to run off of the plant and down your hill and away. You just want to keep the water away from your plants. They don't like to be wet. So it's a tricky balance, because if you have a young plant, the first year you have it, it needs to be moist. And the second year, it wants to be dry. From the third year on, your plant is considered a mature plant. They'll last about 20 years, but you really do have to sort of monitor to make sure they're not sitting in water.
As Vermonters, we're very familiar with the seasons of, say, like maples sugaring season and other harvest seasons. What about lavender season? So what's the growing when does this growing season begin, and what's that yearly cycle look like?
For us as teachers, it's a very, very busy year. So I don't know if I mentioned that my husband Dan and I are both teachers. Dan teaches automotive at Linden Institute, and I teach art at Hazen Union School. So Dan's over in Lindenville, and I'm in Hardwick, and we are busy all year round. We have a slow period in the winter. So here's what our year looks like. In September, we are heading back to school, and about that same time, things start to slow down here on the farm a little bit. By October, we've got our winter frame up, and we're getting the winter blanket on the plants by the end of October. November, December, January, February, and March, the plants sit dormant. But what a lot of people don't realize is they're still growing. So in probably the end of April, beginning of May, right around in there, we take the winter blanket off, and we're always amazed as to how much the plants have grown during that time frame. In the spring, we prune back a little bit. It's a lot of work because we have over 1,000 plants, which we prune with an electric, it's an electric cutter. So we come in and we kind of shear the plants down. And then as the season continues through the spring and into the summer, we just watch as the beautiful buds start to blossom. July is exciting. So right now we are in we're in lavender mode right now. Our culinary lavender, that English lavender, comes into bloom earlier in June. So usually right around June 10th. And then about a couple weeks later, towards mid to late, I said June, the culinary lavender comes into bloom right around July 10th. And then later in July, right around, well, actually now we're just sort of watching the buds very, very carefully, because usually around July 20th, we harvest our tall, phenomenal lavender. And the phenomenal, it's beautiful. That's the lavender we use for our bouquets. So it's about 12 to 16 inches in height, and it's just gorgeous in bouquets. It's dried or fresh lavender. Once everything is harvested, we bundle it up and we hang it upside down to dry. So we actually use our neighbor's barn. They have a big, beautiful dairy barn, and we hang all of the lavender in their barn to dry. Okay. It dries for about 2 months. Once the moisture is removed, we can take the bundles down from drying, and we can remove the buds, use those buds for crafts and cooking. You can use the buds for, DIY projects, candle making, that sort of thing. And then we wrap those beautiful bouquets in purple wrapping paper, and we sell them at local co-ops and individually. So lots of different things you can do with the lavender once you've harvested and dried and gone through the entire process to, have it in your hands.
So tell us about Ringo, your 1962 Volkswagen flower truck.
Yeah, Ringo is a lot of fun. So when we first dreamt up this idea of how to show people what we were doing here at the farm with our flowers, we hesitated to open up to the public. We were a little bit nervous about having a lot of people on our property right off the bat. And I said to my husband, well, what if we found a way to bring the flowers to the public? And that's when I got the idea for a flower truck. So Ringo is a 1962 VW transporter who came from Florida. So Dan went down to Florida, picked up Ringo, and I hope I'm saying this right, Ponte Vedra, Florida. So Ringo didn't need anything. He didn't need any new repairs or transformations. Ringo is exactly the way he is now as he was when we purchased him. The only difference, we put a canopy on the back, and Dan built like a flower. The bed of the truck has a flower set up so that we can display our flowers and our products on Ringo. He's available for rent for events, and lots of different folks have seen us at pop-ups across the state of Vermont where we sell our flowers and products. This year, we're at the Littleton Farmers Market every Sunday in Littleton, New Hampshire. And we've got several weddings lined up with Ringo, which is a lot of fun. So when couples rent Ringo for a wedding, it is so cool for us to see the transformation because everybody has a different idea. So the next big wedding, they're using Ringo as the dessert bar, which is really cool. Ringo's been a grazing table, a memory table. And just to clarify, the way that works is that we take everything out of the bed of the truck and people just transform it by setting up their own materials or their food or photos or whatever the case may be. And of course, there's some Peacham Lavender Farm flowers thrown into the mix. So it's pretty cool.
All right, we're talking to Cindy Camber, who is the owner and operator, a co-owner and operator of the Peacham Lavender Farm in Vermont. And Cindy, any final comments for our listeners?
Oh, I would tell our listeners to check out our website. We're launching a new website. Hopefully it'll be launched today, maybe tomorrow. But on our new website, you'll be able to actually shop our products online. And you can inquire about all the different opportunities of where to see Ringo and how to rent Ringo for your event. And something else that's pretty special is we're gearing up to have folks come to the farm. We're looking at 2028 as a year for folks to come and visit us out here at the farm.
This is a wonderful reminder that supporting local agriculture can mean more than filling the supper table. It can also mean helping pollinators, preserving unusual flower varieties, strengthening a family business, and bringing a bit more beauty into our communities. Listeners, don't just admire locally grown flowers from a distance. Look for Peacham Lavender Farm in area markets and pop-up events. Consider Vermont-grown flowers for your wedding or gathering, or bring Ringo and its flower bar to your next special occasion. Visit Peacham Lavender Farm online and follow the farm on social media to see where Cindy and her flowers will be appearing next. Every bouquet purchased from a local grower helps keep another Vermont field planted, productive, and full of life. Well, thank you so much, Cindy. It was a delight talking to you.
Oh, thank you. It was really nice to be here.
We live somewhere incredible, and all of us at the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department want you to make the most of it. Hiking, hunting, birding, fishing, or even just sitting by a stream for a few minutes after work. Vermont's woods and waters make it possible, and protecting them is our responsibility. So we hope you'll lace up your boots and hike an old woods road on one of our wildlife management areas, or put in for a day at the lake at one of our access areas. We protect these places for their own sake, for the wildlife who call them home, and for you.
Every business story starts small. As you share your story, it creates movement, and movement builds momentum. Your social media and website are the conduits for that story. It's about more than clicks and views. It's about creating connection, community, and opportunity to do business. It's time to tell your story. Go to northeastkingdomonline.com. Our local Vermont team can help you get more from your online media. Once again, that's northeastkingdomonline.com.
It's the St. Johnsbury Chrysler Dodge Jeep Rams Outdoor Edge on YKR Country.
The Autosaver Group's St. Johnsbury Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram asks, do your outdoor adventures take you to where you wish you had a four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive? At St. Johnsbury Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram, explore their vast inventory of adventure-savvy four-wheel drives and all-wheel drive vehicles ready for you to drive at home. Plus, every St. Johnsbury Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram deal includes the Big Deal Plus, which is a 2-year unlimited scheduled maintenance plan, which includes free state inspections for life. Stop in today in St. Johnsbury, Vermont, or shop St. Johnsbury Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram online at stjohnsburycdjr.com.
At R&L Archery, we know it's not just about the thrill of the hunt or the size of the fish. It's about the moments that matter most, the traditions passed down from one generation to the next, and the stories told by the fire long after the sun is set. It's about the journey, the memories, and the time spent together with friends and family, because these are the moments that truly last a lifetime. R&L Archery, where every adventure begins. Come create your story.
I'm Mark Breen. Welcome to the Outdoor Edge forecast. This is it, the height of summer. On the average, we've reached the warmest 2 weeks of the year, the last 2 weeks of July. Average highs run between 80 and 85 in the valleys, closer to 80 on the hills, nights in the 50s to near 60. Of course, the averages combine those days when it's near 90 degrees and hot outside and some 70s on the cool side, and much the same at night. Cool nights dipping closer to 50 degrees, muggy nights staying in the 60s to even 70 degrees. We're also at that time of year when weather systems are at their least organized. The primary storm track runs across northern Canada, tending to swing various weather fronts through. The resulting weather often depends on the heating of the sun, localized effects of the mountains, and previous clusters of showers and thunderstorms that can either revive on the next day or create localized winds, reacting with the mountains to form other individual showers and storms. This is why July is the warmest and the sunniest, but also the wettest month of the year. This year's pattern has been more active, more changeable, because the Arctic has been cooler than average, forcing the storm track farther south, which continues to push weather fronts through at times. This is likely to continue over the next few weeks, with the balance favoring more cool than hot weather. The chances of rain appear higher than average over the next week and then decrease later this month. This week has also had another element: smoke from wildfires burning in Ontario just west of the Great Lakes. Air quality could suffer at times, so for those of us with respiratory issues, there may be a few days where it won't be great for your outdoor plans. A large rotation of low pressure over Quebec provides the key to the forecast through the weekend and into next week. A moisture-starved front drops south later today, a few showers or a brief thunderstorm. It also helps to steer the wildfire smoke to our south through tomorrow. The next system approaches Saturday. Not well timed for weekend plans, with an increasing chance of showers Saturday, especially in the afternoon. Most of that rain will be Saturday night, though, and then taper off on Sunday. And as long as that timing holds, we may see some breaks of afternoon sun develop Sunday afternoon. It clears out Sunday night into Monday, the next weather system bringing showers next Tuesday or Wednesday. Now to the forecast details. Clearing skies for tonight, lows in the low to mid 50s. Tomorrow, sunshine mixed with afternoon clouds, a comfortably cool day with highs in the 70s. Friday night, clear through midnight, then some increasing clouds, lows again in the 50s. Saturday, becoming cloudy, a rising chance of showers, more likely in the afternoon, highs in the 70s. Saturday night, occasional rain and showers, maybe even a rumble of thunder, 50s to near 60. And Sunday, some scattered morning showers, tapering off, periods of sun developing in the afternoon, continued cool, highs again in the 70s. That's your Outdoor Edge forecast. I'm Fairbanks Museum meteorologist Mark Breen. Be safe and enjoy our great outdoors.
Thank you so much, Mark. And just to remind everybody, you're listening to WYKR 101.3 FM, WTWN AM 1100, and W286DE 105.1 FM, Wells River. And that's going to do it for this week's St. Johnsbury Chrysler Dodge Jeep Rams Outdoor Edge. A big thanks to RJ Thompson for sharing an exciting work being done by Vermont Hudson Trails to connect people with Vermont's incredible outdoor spaces and communities. And also thanks to Cindy Camber from the Peacham Lavender Farm, giving us a glimpse into one of the Northeast Kingdom's hidden gems. And of course, thanks again to Mark Breen from the Fairbanks Museum for keeping us up to date with the Outdoor Edge forecast. And of course, if you missed any part of today's program, you can listen to this episode and every past episode anytime at WYKR.com, on the WYKR app, or wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, get outside, try something new, and enjoy everything our corner of Vermont, New Hampshire has to offer. Thanks for listening to the St. Johnsbury Chrysler Dodge Jeep Rams Outdoor Edge.